That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Guy steps out of Times Square station, smashes it on the sidewalk.
Welcome to the Zero Indent Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined by Patrick Laverne, a young boy who's never eaten a meal at a table before.
Yeah, why eat at a table when cans will do?
Wiser words have never been said. And as always, J.M. Anderson, a man in real life who probably uses cutlery weird despite using cutlery his entire life, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I could probably tell some stories, but I'll wait until later when we need some brevity, and then I'll embarrass myself.
Excellent. I say this with all of the love in my cold, dead heart. You seem like a man who eats weird. Because you sent me pictures of what you eat before. Here's a collage of the weird shit that JM eats and the weird kind of meals he puts together. And it hadn't occurred to me till this reading that also implies that you probably do cutlery wrong. You know what I mean? Because I don't think that those two things can I don't think they can co-locate without both being true. Like, if you eat weird meals, you're probably doing cutlery. Like, you know, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't think that you always use a fork in your left hand.
Well, technically, you're not always supposed to. But also no.
You're not always supposed to?
That was,
what does that mean?
So that was a reference to, like, if you're eating at a super classy, highfalutin kind of meal, then you're actually, like, swapping the silverware around depending on if you're cutting or if you're eating, and you're actually supposed to take the bites with your non-dominant hand for whatever stupid reason.
That's
so
incorrect.
I was like, no.
That's not right. Sorry.
Well, we're backwards here.
We're
backwards here. What do you want?
I don't know. I didn't bring this up just to dunk on you, but that's completely not right. Anyway, that's fine. That's fine. America.
Everything's different in Alabama.
Oh yeah, in Alabama, we eat steak with 2 forks and 3 knives. Okay, sorry. Welcome back to our.
We just pick it up. Pick it up
like a tomahawk. I'm on one today, guys, so just be warned. Welcome back to our continued study of the post-apocalyptic genre, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers, who make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Today, we are reading from page 109 to the end of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, finishing our discussion of his seminal modern novel. Strong disclaimer for violence and suicide, and thankfully not much else this time, so a bit more of a tame set of disclaimers. Now, we've kind of, this reading, I think, unsurprisingly, was, I think, without meaning to, we kind of set this up nicely in thinking about what was happening last time and kind of discussing, like, the possible outcomes here. I think I was refreshed to find this not as sad as it could have been. Maybe I'll say that. There's some ambiguity with the ending to an extent, I think. But, yeah, what did you guys think of this reading and maybe the book as a whole now having finished it? Maybe we'll go to Pat first.
Well, I mean, I certainly understand why it's, one of the great American classics. And one of the great modern novels, as you call it, because, like, this story has no interest in being like a narrative, if that makes sense. There is no like, it's not interested in the structures of narrative or what should happen or what should come next, or I don't know, follows any sort of dramatic principle or anything like that. Like, it constantly is just like, at least for me, like, someone who reads a lot of books and watches a lot of movies and stuff, it constantly undercuts like what you expect to happen in apocalypse stories, and in undercuts narrative principles that you're expecting, and therefore, like, I feel like it's one of those books that effectively brings the story and characters to life in a very, like, unfiltered, raw way. You want to reach out into this world, help these characters, make them survive, or help them survive. And yeah, I feel like that constant undercutting of narrative principles, it should like, you know, have the opposite effect, maybe like take you out of the book. But like, I think the reason why it's so effective as the like the classic like modern novel, as you'd say, like, is because it actually like it circles back to actually working and immersing you into the world and the story. Like there's, I feel like that everything you read is like just extremely filtered through this like diegesis that is just unbreakable when you're reading the prose. And yeah, yeah, it like it's such a fantastic book. Like I throw my hands up and like just like it moved me. It like affected me so deeply.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, amazing book. And yeah, you're right. It wasn't as, it did have a bit of an uplifting ending.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you were saying there. I think that reflects, and this is why I fucking think the intro is bad, but that reflects what the intro is talking about with like this kind of whole cloth rejection of like teleological frameworks entirely. Like McCarthy just doesn't care whether you enjoy reading the book or if the book feels like a book, right? Like he's so far beyond those concerns by this point, and like I think. And this is, you know, it's a difficult thing to unpack, right? No Country for Old Men, you know, I breezed through like the first half of that this week, and like that's a book, you know what I mean? Like that's a book with like plot and characters and structures, and like, you know, it reads like a season of Fargo, you know what I mean? Whereas this to me feels far more of a piece with like a Station 11 or maybe even like a Glass Hotel, where it's so focused on producing a vibe and like and communicating a sense of consciousness, right? Like this man's interiority, that everything else is in service of that. Like there's no yeah, as you say, Pat, there's no point where you can feel the author's hand on the scale and be like, okay, now let's do the thing books do, right? Like it's so self-contained within its own yeah, focus of subjectivity. And like I think it's incredible. I'm not sure that I like it. Do you know what I mean? Like I think it's one of the best books ever written. I'm not sure I'm a fan, which is a weird place to end in. Like I don't know. Maybe that'll change the next time I read it, but yeah, it's a weird one. Yeah, JM, what about you? Where's your head at? Cuz you were kind of, I wouldn't say you were the biggest hater necessarily, but you were certainly, I think, putting some pressure on the book's existence and what it's trying to achieve. So yeah, I'm curious where you land now that we finished it.
I think I'm still in that same headspace. Um, but I also might hit snooze until we actually talk through the rest of it, because I think the points that I have might really take up more time, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Yeah. That's yeah. But one sentence, what, like high level, give me something.
Probably very much along the lines of what you just said, where I can very much appreciate what was done here, and I actually went back and reread the whole thing again, so I've done the whole thing twice now. And the second time I got a lot more out of it and in different ways. And even with all of those good points and having a firmer grasp on what I think all of the different metaphors might be, even then I still question, like, what is the purpose of it existing? But then you also get into the discussion of, like, this was sold as part of a capitalist structure for this author to make a living, and so maybe he just had to publish it. But anyway, so yes, it will be on my bookshelf, but just like you said, I don't know that I like it. It's very impactful, it's very memorable, but I don't know that it contains any message that inherently makes my life better to be worth remembering.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I have this book in the same mental category as a film like Van Diemen's Land, where that's like the only film I've ever had to like walk out of. I found that so deeply upsetting. And I ended up rewatching it, a few years after it had come out, and like, I remember having that exact same thought of like, this is incredibly impressive and like a real landmark piece of art, but it's not my kind of art. And that's part of why I wanted to cover this book, because I think that we're going to have like the opposite reaction to I Am Legend when we read that book, where it's like, oh, this is just like up tip to tail. This book rips. And I think that The Road is a really interesting and challenging text because it to what Pat was saying, and to kind of knit the two ideas together, right? Like when in the intro it's like, oh, or on the back it's like, this is everything that the modern novel can do. That is what the modern novel can do, right? It's incredibly enjoyable to read. It contains some of the most outlandishly stylish sentences in the English language, and some of the most evocative visual imagery in the English language. And also, like, I don't know, I don't love reading. I don't love it, like I don't love the whole book, even if I love reading it. And that to me is something that the modern novel can achieve that we haven't really seen, or that we hadn't seen to this extent, I think, previously, especially in the American context where, it's like who's the other like preeminent like American novelist like making the American novel? It's like, I guess Stephen King still. Like there's not a lot of contenders. And so McCarthy, McCarthy impresses, I think, more than McCarthy writes a book for people to read. Is the way that I end up leaving this one.
I really wanted to trigger you and say J.K. Rowling.
In what sense?
But not American.
Well,
so
she's not American, so that wouldn't make sense. Also, she's bad at writing books, so anyway, we can one day in the future when we've exhausted the post-apocalypse and we've gone through our next unit, which we've now planned, at least in some capacity, we will do a J.K. Rowling unit where we will read those fucking Harry Potter books in publication order, and I will lose my mind for a year. We'll do a year of Potter or something. I will just read them, and it's like, I swear to God, man, every time I reread those books, I get colder and colder on them. Like outside of that third book, it's like, what are we doing here? Why is there a sports book in the middle of this fucking? Anyway, whatever. We can't do it now. Pat, could we please hear the summary so we don't keep talking shit about Harry Potter, a franchise everyone loves, despite the person who made it?
All right. The man and the boy are starving. They hide from fellow travelers and then come upon a house pregnant with meaning and with apparently fresh supplies. Settling in for the night, they build a hearth, share a meal at a table for perhaps the first time in their lives together. The man carves a bedhead, and over the course of 4 days, the house repatriates a possible future. They ate well, but they were still a long way from the coast, McCarthy tells us. A minor reprieve. At last they reach the coast. This too is blasted. The ocean is grey slag, the horizon stale mist. The man swims out to an abandoned yacht and/or frigate. He discovers a number of goods. An optimist may see this as a turning of fortune. We are not so lucky. In a moment closer to death, rites than celebration, the man agrees to fire the recovered flare gun. That same night, the boy catches fever, only for their supplies to be stolen. They catch the thief and leave the thief destitute. Justice, says the man. The man and the boy come upon a number of disgorged ocean towns, scraps to be had at best. And then the entirety of The Last of Us is here. The man is shot in the leg by a bow and responds by setting a man on fire with a flare. Eventually, the man succumbs to his wounds. The boy is alone on the road until he is picked up by a bearded man and woman who promise they are the good guys. Once there were brook trout in the streams in the mountains. You could see them standing in the amber current where the white edges of their fins wimpled softly in the flow. They smelled of moss in your hand, polished and muscular and torsional. On their backs were vermiculate patterns that were maps of the world and its becoming, maps and mazes of a thing which could not be put back, not be made right again. In the deep glens when they lived, in the deep glens where they lived, all things were older than man, and they hummed of mystery.
I mean,
And I believe that was the last paragraph of the book.
yeah. So good, man. Imagine inventing a word in the last paragraph of your book. Terizinal. Like, this, the juice of this man. Unbelievable.
Pat, I was going to say that I was also stumbling on the vocabulary at the end there, so even reading it in my head, I was like, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Well, the reason I stumbled on that word is because it actually is torsional. It's not torizinal.
Yes.
Which I feel like torsional, you can kind of intuit more like, you know, like twisting kind of, yeah.
Yeah. It's so good. I love this. This in the final instance, he can't resist but provide us like an incalculable image. It's so good. God, this book rules. Okay. All right. Can I tell you the first? What's the first thing you have written in your notes, Pat? I'm just curious. We sometimes do this exercise.
Well, I haven't actually written any notes for,
He's
for
going
this series.
freeball.
I've just been,
Interesting.
yeah. Well, I like the book. It's just a vibe, you know.
Yeah.
I just like talking about it as the ideas come up because I don't know. Like, yeah, I definitely could write things about this, but like, it's I don't know. It just sucks. You like it sucks you into the story so much. I feel. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
I just like being. I just like I just like experiencing like the absolute like despair that these characters have.
Yeah, just
Which makes me
dissolving
make me freak maybe.
I mean, hey, this is like one of the most popular books of all time, so I think you're probably safe. The first thing I've written is and this is on page 115 in my EPUB, in all caps. What the fuck is happening with these fucking snakes, boys? I opened this reading and I went, huh? I'll give you the passage. I just have no idea what any of this means. Standing at the edge of a winter field among rough men, the boy's age, a little older, watching while they opened up the rocky hillside ground with pick and mattock and brought to light a great bolus of serpents, perhaps 100 in number, collected there for a common warmth, the dull tubes of them beginning to move sluggishly in the cold light, like the bowels of some great beast exposed to the day. The men poured gasoline on them and burned them alive, having no remedy for evil, but only for the image of it as they conceived it to be. The burning snakes twisted horribly, and some crawled burning across the floor of the grotto to illuminate its darker recesses. As they were mute, there were no screams of pain, and the men watched them burn and writhe and blacken in just such silence themselves, and they disbanded in silence in the winter dusk, each with his own thoughts, to go home to their suppers. Huh? Right? And especially because we know that in this, like, the book's already put forward this idea that, like, the closer to death he is, the more he dreams these, like, fantastic half memories from his life. This comes from, like, I think it must be I don't know, it might be a dream. But this is just wedged between two, like, logistical paragraphs. Like, there's no setup or context for this image. But it's like a bunch of guys standing in they've uncovered some kind of a cave of like 100 snakes or something. And they set them all on fire. Like, what? And they just watch them in silence and then leave without saying anything. What? It's so bizarre. I don't know, like, what's happening? What is it? Yeah, I mean, to your point, like, is it real?
Yeah, I feel like that's the kind of thing that would happen in this world. But I mean, that's the thing about this book, though. Like, it's so like disturbing and confronting because like it's stuff that is absolutely possible like for humans to do. Like, is the thing. Like, I don't know if you're in this world, I don't know, you can survive it for 10 years, fighting with cannibals and murderers and rapists and stuff. Like, I don't know, uncovering a snake pit and then setting them all on fire for whatever, warmth or food or just something to do. Like, sure, I totally believe that. Like this is the kind of world that like puts you into a permanent psychosis. And yeah, that's like burning a pit of snakes. Like, it's sick imagery, and it's nightmare, stuff, and it's absolutely like the kind of stuff that fits into this world.
Well, yeah, notably snakes. Obviously, we think about the religious stuff in this book. Snakes in the Garden of Eden, right? That's the disguise the devil takes in that book.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a good lead-in to one of my overall interpretations now after I've gone through the book a second time. I think this is a memory. Because of those first two lines, he's saying that he was the boy's age, a little older, and he's watching this, and these guys were they were either tilling the land for farming and digging into this hill, or they were mining for whatever and digging into the hill because they were going after something, and just happened to come across the snakes. But regardless, looking through the whole book, I kept noticing more and more references to what I thought was Plato's cave. And I think that and I don't know how like direct like these metaphors are with what the author was trying to do, or if it was just, oh, what if I use that as like kind of a building ground and went from there. But I keep thinking that the road represents the cave and the false world, because almost all of the experiences that the dad and the kid have that are quote unquote real happen off the road, right? They're in farmhouses, or they're in the bunker, or they're at the beach or whatever. They're not on the road. The road is the lie, and traveling the road is the lie, and leaving the road is where they experience the real world. And the imagery that we see in this scene with the snakes being in the cave and then being set on fire, and the shadows on the wall, and all of this kind of stuff. There's a whole lot of talk about caves. There's obviously a ton of talk about fire. Also, in the Plato's cave stuff, there's imagery about the people being like blinded when they first come into the light, and there's a bunch of references in here to the creatures being blind with their eyes being totally white, and then the whole world kind of being blind because you can't see anything with all of the ash in there. So there's a bunch of examples, and even the gold hair that he kept having all of these references to the kid's hair, and I thought that was connected, but it might be something else from the Republic, which is the myth of the metals, which is that rulers were born with gold in their souls, which was also what Plato wrote in the same like thing as the cave. So I don't know if we could like keep putting together all of these examples to show that that what McCarthy had done was like base the sort of loose story is not the right word, but like the framework was like, what if the cave, but it's a road, and they're not trapped in a cave that's a fake world. They're traveling through life that's a fake life.
I think if you ask McCarthy, and I only know this because I've watched that single interview with Oprah Winfrey. She's really bad at interviewing authors, I'm sorry to say. It's not a good interview, but he does the like, yeah, like this is just a book about like a boy and a man. I do think that the allegory is certainly there. I think the extent to the application of that allegory on the text, right? You're going to be able to produce different things by putting that pressure on the text. They start in the north in ignorance and darkness, and they head south and they gain like knowledge and experience, and then eventually like they come out of this like cave, if you like, right? The boy comes out of the road and finds something resembling civilization, right? I think it was Plato who was like, yeah, civilization is you just need three people that agree on how they want to live their life, right? So yeah, I think that's probably like a valid reading, and I'm almost certain, and I can't tell you who wrote it. I was trying to Google it before, but I can't find it. I'm pretty sure someone's written that paper. I feel like it was in the Cormac McCarthy journal. I cannot find who wrote it, but I'm pretty sure that essay exists and someone's done that work. So, yeah, you're pretty on the button with like thinking about the implications of that. I think for me though, like I'm not sure that does a lot for me. Like I'm not sure that that's very productive to me. Because of the type of guy I am. But yeah, I think that's like a completely that is one of the readings you will hear in like a university seminar on this book. Is Plato's Cave. So yeah, I mean, very, very, very attentive, I think, to that regard. And yeah, the imagery of caves and light and fire, you know.
Well, and I feel like because every event in this book is so relentlessly dark, it sort of, I don't know, like it sort of circles back around to having like a fictitious quality about it, like, you know, as if it's like a nightmare, right? Like, and I don't know, there's like, I feel like in some sense there's an unreality about the book and the story that yeah, makes it more like an idea of rather than like, you know, a world. And you know, it's like you want the kid and to break free of this world and to be able to I don't know, be able to kindle his fire and you know, restore everything to how it was, you know, reignite the first flame.
Restart that cycle, baby. Well, yeah, and like just to that point, right? The good stuff feel that way too. Like the good things they find just seem impossible. Like they come upon that bunker, and it's just miraculous. And then in this, like the next thing that we have in this reading is they come upon this house that just like makes no fucking sense. Like it feels like a trick, you know?
I think one reason that I latched on so strong to this kind of like explanation is something that I had talked about before when I was, you know, saying like I don't understand the purpose of the book, and part of that I had said was about the way that it's written being so ambiguous, and if I feel like if I can't discern meaning with all of the work that we're putting into it, then there is no meaning, and the author wrote gibberish. And so if I'm reading gibberish, then there's no point for me to be reading something that has no meaning. So there has to be something that he meant by putting these trout at the very end, you know? But if he comes and says, no, it's just a story about a man and a kid, then that kind of like takes away the poignancy of the whole book. If there's no meaning behind all of that eloquence, then it's just eloquence for the sake of it, right? So like whether or now we're like fully in like death of the author, because I'm like this is my meaning to make the book worth existing. Does that make sense? Like the Plato stuff explains the book to me, and without it, I don't know that I'd keep a copy of the book, because I don't understand why it's here.
Well, to say that, for McCarthy to say that this it's just a book about like a man and a kid, you know, like without mentioning any of like the like the, you know, the Lovecraft vibes, or like the absolute like the weird eloquent dream sequences that the man has, and like the, you know, the hugely complex interiority that the man has and the kid has, and all the, you know, infinitely complex like emotion, feelings and thoughts that they both have. Like I feel like that's sort of it's the point, like, you know, to other people on the road, like that doesn't mean shit. They're just like either a threat or like, you know, lunch or some shit like that. Like there's a whole world going on here. There's a whole complex world that's, you know, not easily understood. that is everything human and everything divine and everything, you know, that's in the ground, everything dirt, and you know, just like, yeah, but at the end of the day, like to every other person, it is just a story of a man and a kid, and to everyone else in this world, you know, that's what they are to the man and the kid. But really, there's like, you know, there's a whole lot more going on, and I think that's sort of like I feel like that's what McCarthy is trying to say when he says it's just a story about a man and a kid.
He's also wrong, right? Like just to be honest with you, he's incorrect. McCarthy is a guy who can't see his fucking own nose half of the goddamn time. He is so talented and so good at writing novels that when he says something like, I don't know, man, it's a story about a boy and a father, and it's like, brother, you wrote a really complicated allegory that is like dealing with like the death of God and like the collapse of like epistemological frameworks. You whole cloth reject like narrative teleology. That like he's wrong that it's a story about a boy and a man as well. Like that's the other thing. I sometimes think about you know, if you go to you know, you find the most talented writer that you know, and you ask them like what a book is about, they'll give you like a pretty straightforward answer in their head, because what they don't appreciate is the tremendous amount of subjectivity, experience, craft, talent that they're putting into that book, because you stop seeing it at a certain point, right? JM, you and I talked about this when we did our Media Crit 101 series for Patreon, which will be coming out in a couple months. Like, one of the biggest difficulties with media criticism after doing it for so long, like, you know, this is year, God, don't think about it, this must be like year 13 or 14 or something like that, doing this stuff on the internet. And part of that is that you start to lose sight of the fundamentals because they become so deeply ingrained and enmeshed with the other layers that you've built on top of it that you almost can't describe the fundamentals without really sitting down and focusing on it. And so I think that like what Pat said is completely right, which is like he is being deliberately reductive to be evocative. And then also I just think he's fundamentally wrong. Like, and he knows he's wrong.
To be fair, that's how I would describe my books as well. If I had written books that became popular, I'd be super like reductive.
Well, yeah, it's also like it's a marketing thing. Like when people ask me, like, "Oh, what's this book about?" You have to come up with something pithy and like. You also don't want to tell people how to read your book. You don't want to like, you know, narrow the aperture of what people can think your thing is about. You know, unless you're Tolkien, in which case you're gonna have some complicated thoughts about allegory and application. But yeah. It is fascinating, and part of what confounds this discussion is that McCarthy very rarely talks about his books. He was famously kind of allergic to the media, and you can fit. And like I say Alan this Moore. He's kind of an Alan Moore. Yeah, actually, him and Alan Moore have a very similar kind of tendency, where he was like, "Yeah, I just want to live in my home, write my books, and everyone leave me the fuck alone." But one of the more interesting aspects, I think, of McCarthy as an author is that I say this with all the kindness in my heart. It is crazy listening to Oprah fucking Winfrey talk to Cormac McCarthy. Like the amount that's going on behind McCarthy's eyes compared to Oprah is crazy. Like they're having this conversation and she's asking him normal author questions, and he's just like sort of trying to reduce down his responses into something consumable. Not to say that she's like a bad interviewer of like other people or whatever, but it's just a really interesting tonal difference between the two, where she's trying to get this information out of him and he's just very blasé about it. So I definitely recommend watching that interview. It's on YouTube.
Is it like the Conan O'Brien interview with Joaquin Phoenix, where he just like doesn't give any like personality or like just refuses to like say any flaw?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It reminds me a little bit of there's a Nick Cage interview for one of his early films where it's like that, and you just watch him give nothing to the interviewer. It was very entertaining. So I guess to put some pressure on the thing that James said, and maybe to try and draw out a question from that. Why? Okay, let's say hypothetically, that the book has no meaning, which I think I disagree with, but that's, your mileage is going to vary. If it was just eloquence and imagery for the sake of it, why would that be insufficient? And also, why wouldn't that produce its own meaning unto itself? Right? And look, I'm not a painting guy. I'm the first to admit that. When we were in Europe last year and we went to the Sistine Chapel, I was like, cool. All right. I don't really get it. Like I just stood there and I was like, all right, word. Like, he did that, huh? But I didn't feel anything. As opposed to I saw a Van Gogh painting in real life and like immediately got emotional. Like it was like instant. I've never felt anything like that with visual art before. So yeah, I guess to put that question back on you, JM, like, and you don't have to have an answer to this. I'm just putting pressure on the notion because I think it's like interesting. Is like, why would that be insufficient, or what makes that insufficient to you? If it was just, evocative and prosaic and beautifully written for the sake of that.
To slightly clarify, like half the prose in here is gorgeous, and you understand what he's like being metaphorical about, right? But then you get to the other half of it, and he's like, "What if he's a god and we were trees?" And you got to throw up your hands because you have no idea what he's saying, and that's the part. And I don't know why this comparison popped into my head, but I immediately thought of gore horror films, where like the story is horrible and pointless, and the only reason people watch them is because the physical practical effects of the gore are so bloody and they love that, and that's why they go watch them. But there's no actual substance beyond that physical viscera. And like this kind of half of it has that same it hits me that same way, where if I can't discern what he's trying to tell me, then there's no point to it, and it's just gore for the sake of gore. And I guess, I mean, now you've gotten me like questioning, like if I knew that this entire book was only pretty prose and like literally had a incomprehensible story, and I went into it with that premise, would I see a point? And even then, I'm not sure because like, why? That feels like you're taking the easy route when like the writer's job is to clearly communicate intent, right? So why would you write something where the intent doesn't matter and all that matters is the medium? I mean, I could come around on that argument. I'm not really...
The writer's job, if they so choose, is to teach you how to read the thing they've written, right? We talk about that as conveyance, right? This is easier to understand in like a video game. I think context, just because it's like there's more mechanics, but like if the game says like press A to jump and then you come upon like a ledge that you need to cross, like it's teaching you how to play it, right? Books are the same thing where they teach you how to read it. I think this comes down to it's purely a taste thing, and it's purely like, what are you reading stuff for? Because to me, right, and again, I'm gonna make I statements. This is just my personal preference. If this book didn't have all of the like pregnant meaning that Pat was talking about, and all the big things that it's doing, and all the big kind of allegory that it's trying to deploy, if it just had some of these single sentences, I think it would be worth it. Like, there are truly some of the best like pieces of imagery in the English language in this novel. And that's because, like, I'm a Derridian guy. Like, I think like the words on the page are the only thing that matters. But the other thing, on the gore thing, and the horror thing, one thing that it took me a really long time to figure out and come around on, because I'm a real snob. Okay, guys, both of you act surprised, all right? I'm a bit of a snob. I have a really narrow range of things I like. One of the things that took me fucking way too long to figure out is that that snobbery is just about taste, right? One of the things that I say when younger writers will send in submissions to Underink, and they've got books that they're working on, and they sort of ask for general advice, which I hate giving. One of the best pieces of general advice I give to new writers is that you have to develop really strong, aggressive taste, right? That means you have to figure out what you really don't like and figure out what you really like. And one thing that can happen in that process is that you forget that it's all just art at the end of the day, right? Horror is just art that's trying to make you scared. I love horror films, right? Me and James have our horror podcast where we talk about the Scream films, among other things. And I love it. I get to turn my brain off and just have a fucking true ride, man. And it's really fun, and I love doing that. And it's just art that's trying to make you scared or excited. Different types of art are just trying to do different things, but it's all art at the end of the day, right? Porn is just art that's trying to make you horny. Horror is just trying to make you scared. This book is just trying to make you sad. It's all just art, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to go, that to me was not something that I necessarily enjoy, and so therefore it's not my kind of thing. Me and Pat have an endless argument about how I don't fuck with anime, because it's art that's trying to do stuff that I'm not interested in some of the time. And so I think it's a perfectly valid perspective. I just wanted to try and tug at the edges a bit and maybe open up that thought to kind of that is how taste is developed.
You know what I like that this book does, it's closer to a point than just words and paragraphs stitched together and stuff like that. Is, for example, skipping ahead a bit, the confrontation between the man who takes all this shit and then he holds a gun to him. McCarthy, I get the sense that McCarthy, same with every interaction with another human being in this novel, he had to really think about motivations and interiority and history and feelings and terror. It's a fairly short exchange, but I feel like McCarthy really had to inhabit for a second a truly terrible and despairing setting and character in order to get to a very uncomfortable expression of humanity, and what humans are capable of and stuff like that. And as I said before, I fucking love the grimdark shit, right? And I love when authors are forced to really consider and think about humans at such an abject point of desperation and fear and suffering and stuff like that. This makes me sound like a serial killer.
No, it rules.
But
It's so good.
Yeah, it does. Because that's there's plenty of horror in the world, don't get me wrong, but I feel like this sort of stuff is usually kept in fiction. So, and that's the only place you can get it. So yeah.
Can I tell you my favorite imagery of that kind of all time is in Dark Souls 2. You've played through the whole game and you're coming up to this big confrontation with the king, with Vendrick, and you defeat his bodyguard, and it's a fucking nail-biting fight. And you're like, okay, it's time for the biggest boss fight of the game. And you go into his chamber, and he's a giant guy who's hollowed out by the dark side. He's just walking in a circle. He's been driven mad by this pursuit of power. And there's this haunting song that plays. Bro, the first time I played that game and that happened, I just put the controller down. It made me emotional because it was thinking that deeply about how far will you push yourself away from what a person is? That shit will stay with me for the rest of my life. Just truly, to your point, the imagery that I should be that sucked, man. I'm that's so good that a story can achieve that feeling. Oh, that's what it's all about, man. Come on.
And real quickly, the other thing I wanted to say was the random, sections of prose about, turning into trees and gods and stuff like that. I feel like I kind of have those little like flashes of I don't know, Lovecraftian intrusive thoughts every now and again. Like I relate to like those sections. Um,
Yeah, the show will do that to you. It's this show will make you like that. I also think that's like part of being a writer. Like, I can't underscore. Little stuff just gets in your head and like completely explodes. Like, in March last year, before we went to Europe, I was walking to work, and I saw this. There was like a guy in like business. They were like younger people. Not that we're old, but you know what I'm saying. And there was like a guy and a girl, and they were sitting in King George Square, Pat, right? So like on those benches as you walk down, and they were sitting there, and it was really weird because they were dressed in business clothes and they were drinking coffee out of mugs, but they're in the middle of the square. I'm like, that's weird. And they were clearly head over heels in love with each other, but it was really obvious that neither of them had realized that. And that image was so salient to me that I literally like. I went to a bench, I sat down, I pulled out my laptop, and I started writing a novel, and that exploded into like a time travel story. But like it's difficult to underscore the way that like prose kind of it can get beneath your subjectivity sometimes. And yes, I have those thoughts all the time. I'm just lucky enough that I get to write them down. I guess I'm saying I empathize, and you're not crazy. That's a thing. Or we're both crazy. Well, one of the two.
All of that might actually be a good segue into the other thought that I had, because we were kind of talking about like the overall point of it and everything. But it reminded me so much of Silent Night, which we covered for like our Christmas special. And Silent Night, if anyone hasn't seen it, is kind of like the whole movie is about having to accept inevitable death. Like forget the very last 5 seconds of it, and that's what the whole movie is about. And that's what this story, I think, is also about. Because I think there's an argument that the kid is dead at the end of it too. I think when you go back and reread it, the entire time people are telling the man, like, you have to give up. There is no way to survive this. You are going to die. The man is thinking inside his own head, I am going to die. But he's refusing to accept it. He's on the road, which is a lie because it's the cave, or if, whatever. Like the whole thing is refusing to accept that death is inevitable. And it's kind of interesting how like Silent Night attacked the same thing, but it feels so different. Because I guess because it was so overt, as like the main point, where here it's a lot more subtle, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a eulogic quality to this book, right? It kind of reads like a eulogy for humanity almost. And yeah, it's about the man like accepting his own death, right? That's kind of like the thing that has to happen. Yeah, and I love the way it's written, as if this is always happening and will always be happening. Like there's no end to the road. They pick their way among the mummied figures, the black skin stretched upon the bones, and their faces split and shrunken on their skulls, like victims of some ghastly vacuuming, passing them in silence down that silent corridor through the drifting ash, where they struggled forever in the road's cold coagulate. There's a kind of it's like a dead organism. The world is like this dead organism, and the man is yet to realize that he is a part of that organism that's already died. And he has to learn to accept that he was always dead. Like he's been alive all this time and he's raised this kid, but he died the second the world ended. And he just has to make peace with that. And when he does make peace with that, and that's what I really love about the way this book kind of transpires toward the end, is it reads like the last like kind of I was gonna say chapters, like doesn't have chapters, but like the last kind of 20 to 30 pages that we've read, they kind of read like death rites of like each, they have that meal at the table. That's kind of got like Last Supper vibes. you get shot with the arrow, and the kid starts to take on more responsibility throughout this reading as well, in a way that feels like he's testing the kid to make sure that he can do some of this stuff. Yeah, to me it feels at least that he's preparing for his own death in these subtle ways, right?
And it's interesting what you were just talking about with the road. It didn't hit me until the second read through that they keep talking about the road. And as a reader, you keep thinking that this is one like single interstate that they're on, but it's not. They keep taking different turns. They're cutting through the like forest at one time. Just any road that they come to that's going roughly south is the road. And so you get the feeling that like the road symbolizes the true path, especially with all the golden god stuff in the kid. Like they're on the path of righteousness, but they're also just taking any path that's going in the right direction.
Yeah, and like here, I think we can see Tolkien kind of inverted once again, right? The way that Bilbo and Frodo talk about the road is this kind of, a tributary that can take you anywhere, right? That thing Bilbo says to Frodo was like, like, when you step onto the road, mind your feet, boy, lest you get swept off to who knows where, right? There's a kind of, McCarthy, I think, subsumes that language into... It's still a liquid, but it's like, blood and ash and like this kind of decay that will still take you somewhere, but it's not somewhere you want to go. Like there's no good place where this is going to sweep you off to. And so I think there's a bit of a resumption of that kind of that metaphor that the Tolkien certainly puts forward. And yeah, I've only just thought about that now as you were saying that. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's bad.
I like how they actually like reach their destination basically, and then they find that it's not the answer to their problem, so they just like keep going.
Can I tell you that for a second I didn't think it was going to be good when they got there? Not for 1 minute.
No, me neither. But I mean, I still wanted to know what it was. But like what was the edge of the world like? And it did not disappoint, honestly. Like it was, like barren seas, like even like the constant throughout all of human history, the sea, even that's fucked up. Like it's just not the same. And I love that detail. Like it truly is like Dark Souls wasteland apocalypse.
Yeah, it's
like truly like a dead world, like a dying dead world.
Yeah, I love the imagery of like the ocean's not even blue anymore. Like it's so wild. Yeah. I think I had it somewhere.
It was only like a single line, and it might have been glossed over, but there was one that talks about the millions of fish rib cages that were gathered up along the shore. So, like, life everywhere is just gone.
Yeah, it's a cool detail. It's like some Death Stranding shit.
Oh yeah, it is. But it makes sense, so it's not like Death Stranding. Just kidding. That game ended up making sense. I understood it because I'm smart. Yeah, let me see if I've got this here. Then they came upon it from a turn in the... Hang on. They stood, they listened, but they could hear nothing. Still, he could see open country to the east, and the air was different. Then they came upon it from a turn in the road, and they stopped and stood with the salt wind blowing in their hair, where they'd lowered the hoods of their coats to listen. Out there was the grey beach, with the snow combers rolling dull and leaden and the distant sound of it, like the desolation of some alien sea breaking on the shores of a world unheard of. Out on the tidal flats lay a tanker half careened. Beyond that, the ocean was vast and cold and shifting heavily like a slow-heaving vat of slag, and then the grey squall line of ash. He looked at the boy. He could see disappointment in the boy's face. "I'm sorry it's not blue," he said. "That's okay," said the boy. An hour later, they were sitting on the beach and staring out at the wall of smog across the horizon. They sat with their heels dug into the sand and watched the black sea wash up at their feet. Cold, desolate, birdless. He'd left the cart in the bracken beyond the dunes, and they'd taken blankets with them, and sat wrapped in them in the long wind shade of a great driftwood log. They sat there for a long time. Along the shore of the cove below them, windrows of small bones in the rack. Further down, the salt-beached rib cages of what may have been cattle. Grey salt rinds on the rocks. The wind blew, and dry seed pods scampered down the sands, and stopped, and then went on again. And, like, those rib cages, right? He says they might have been cattle. Does he mean sheep and cows? Or is it, like, probably manatees? Or is it whales? Like, it... But just this imagery of this grey ocean, right? The smog on the horizon, and the beach is just covered in bones. Yeah, incredible.
But I love how to the kid it's still like something novel. It's still kind of like something like with a bit of awe, and he wants to go swimming, and he does, and it's like, man, it's it's so heartrending. Like, I want this kid to be happy.
I know. It's really
I was
rough.
gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
He goes swimming and then he comes out and he's like sobbing uncontrollably and won't vocalize exactly why, but you could assume it's because swimming in the ocean is fun.
Also, it's
Even at the end of the
really
world.
cold. It's really... One thing that we can't understate is it's really cold.
That was something that I thought more about on the second read through. Because when it talks about the ash being in the air and scattering the light and like shadows don't look the same and all this stuff, and I realized that that's probably reflecting so much more heat. So the earth is like literally colder than
Yeah.
it what would be normally, right? Because I kept wondering, like, why are they so cold? Are they further north than I thought that they were? But no, it's just like the entire earth is colder.
Yeah, that was always how I understood it. Was yeah, that there's like this layer of ash in the atmosphere that just like the sun can't penetrate, so it doesn't warm properly. Yeah. There's another paragraph I just want to really quickly give you guys, because it's like, I mean, this whole book is McCarthy in the lab, but this was one of those sentences where I was like, Jesus, like, I didn't know you could write like this. Then the slow boom falling down shore, the seething hiss of it washing over the beach and drawing away again. He thought there could be death ships out there yet, drifting with their lolling rags of sail, or life in the deep. Great squids propelling themselves over the floor of the sea in the cold darkness, shuttling past like trains, eyes the size of saucers. And perhaps beyond those shrouded swells, another man did walk with another child on the dead grey sands, slept but a sea apart on another beach among the bitter ashes of the world, or stood in their rags, lost to the same indifferent sun. I mean, come on. Great squids propelling themselves over the floor of the sea in the cold dark, shuttling past like trains, eyes the side of... I just like... And then this notion of like... That, like, we've all done this when you stare at the ocean, right? And you're like, man, I wonder who's on the other side of that. But like, it's not a comforting thought, certainly. You know?
On the other side of this British man and boy. And you know what? They're doing fine because the world has looked the same as it always has for them.
Got him. It's a chap and a lad, I think, is what it would be. That would be a very different tone of book.
You know how I really thought that this book was going to end with he found a raft inside that sunken half sunken ship, and I really thought he was going to be like, "Hey, let's go and see if we can find that man and the boy across the ocean," and then it just has them paddling off into the ocean, and that's how it ends.
And then
I was so sure that
his
that
boat
was going to be it.
hits the wall, and it's the Truman Show. I couldn't resist. Very good. There's some other stuff I just wanted to quickly throw out there. We got confirmation that it was radiation. There's a point where he talks about iodine, and a bunch of other stuff that kind of confirms that there's like anti-radiation meds happening. And yeah, he like swims out to these boats, and it nearly kills him because it's so fucking cold. Gets a bunch of stuff. Yeah, and then the next thing I have is the the 2 Daisy encounters. I don't necessarily have much to say about the guy who steals this stuff and how that plays out. I guess more where my attention was drawn was when they start traveling the coast, and they kind of come to these how you say, Pat, Alan Wake / Twin Peaks towns vibe. And then yeah, he has a literally an encounter from like the Daisy mod where he's like, man, I feel like there are people around here. I can't see them, and that's real weird. And then like nothing happens for a really long time, and then bam, like the trap closes, and then he fires a flare gun at a guy. Yeah, do you guys have anything before that?
Just like the sequence of him going through the boat. It's very like descriptive and methodical, and yeah, I don't know. It's just more of a vibe. Like I can hear, you know, the echoes of his splashes around in, you know, in the darkness of the half submerged, you know, tanker, and where the room's flipped on its side and shit like that. Like it was very evocative, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it's a man who's thought a lot about boats. Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic that the like best thing that he found was the antique sextant, which was totally useless.
That really moved me. That was like one of the moments where I was reading this where I got genuinely like quite emotional. Yeah, and it's like from London. Ugh. Yeah. Possibly 100 years old? Man, yeah. And it's, what does he say? He says he held it in his hand, and then he fitted it to the back. He fitted it back into the blue base lining of the case, and closed the lid, and snapped the latches shut, and set it back in the locker, and closed the door. Like, he leaves it. I just, like, man, yeah. That really got me. It's like the only thing that's moved him in a really long time. Ugh. Come on.
Yeah, I could not believe that he left it, and then it finally hit me that he's never gonna see stars again.
And that was the point where I got a little bit teary, because I was like, fuck. That was when I knew he knew he was gonna die. Is when he puts it back. Right? That's like, because otherwise he would take it and be like, well, maybe if we keep going like south, or we travel across the continent, then I can use the sextant and like travel by stars, or go and look at. It's like no, like he's done. Yeah. Real rough, to be honest with you. Okay. Yeah, I don't have much. As I said, I don't have much to say about the encounter with the guy, and how that plays out. Do you guys have anything you want to touch on there?
It is a stark turn for the dad, and it's almost like he's allowing himself to become more feral, because they were just on the brink of losing everything, you know? Because, okay, to clarify for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, so a man steals all of their stuff. They have to run down the road and catch up to him, and the guy only has a knife. Our guy has a gun, so he's like, take off all your clothes, take off your shoes, put everything in the cart. You sit here, you go away. You're gonna die. You would have left us to die. I am now leaving you to die. And the man, like, they've been the good guys this whole time, even though he was willing to kill, but now he's overtly doing it. Almost with malice, right? And he only goes back and tries to give the clothes back because the kid keeps crying. You know, the innocent soul of goodness talks him into it.
What the fuck was I gonna say? Yeah. It's obviously he wants to kill the guy without wasting a bullet, right? So he says strip, die of hypothermia. I sort of, in my mind, it was he was having like a Luther Rael moment of like he's doing this, he's sacrificing a sunrise that he will never see for the kid basically. He's becoming the monster. So the kid maximizes the chances of the kid being safe and whatnot. And like it's an interesting like revelation because like throughout the book it's evident that he is not living by the fire that he keeps saying that he wants to keep alive. He seems to be uniquely about the kid and not about him. But yeah, this is just like the moment that like confirms it that like he's not interested in really his priority, as much as he wants to keep the fire going in the kid. It's no contest when it rubs up against the reality of this world. He's fucking killing motherfuckers to keep this kid safe. He's doing whatever he needs to do. I thought that was a good moment.
Yeah, he's so desperate at this point. Yeah, and I like the way that he kind of tries to convince the boy that he's like, no, like we did the right thing, like we didn't kill him. The boy's like, no, but we did though, like we did kill him. Yeah, but also like I think this is a perfectly proportioned response to this situation. Just to be fucking honest with you, he's desperate. The kid was just sick, which is like scared the absolute shit out of him because like a fever could just straight up kill you in this world. Yeah, like I get it.
There was one more interesting.
In this world, like you got to assume that that will kill you. It's perfectly reasonable.
There was one more interesting thing about that man. Several times there's been mentions of small pockets of communes, and they mention that this guy has the fingers of his hand cut off, so it's just the fleshy part of his palm that's left over. And they say that was when he was cast out of the commune. So, like biblically, like if you steal something, you get your hand cut off. So that's what they were going with, right? So it's interesting to think that there are groups of people that are living together and are somehow surviving, and the man hasn't been trying to get the kid there for whatever reason. And then the fact that all of that, like this wasn't a good man that they were leaving there to die because he had already had his fingers cut off for doing bad stuff, right? So he was already a bad guy when he was sentenced to death in this manner. And there's a lot of like interesting subtext there.
Yeah, and like I think this is being a kind of this is the like should you if your enemy's trying to kill you, at what point does it become okay for you to kill them kind of thing? And it takes the man the very last instance to do this, and then he backtracks, right? This is his absolute last resort, whereas for everyone else in the world, it's their first resort, right? And I also think, I just want to acknowledge, right, the question of why he hasn't been seeking out other communities is like an interesting question. Because it's kind of unresolvable within this text. I think the short answer is that he believes what his wife says before she takes her own life. Which is that like the boy won't be safe anywhere. They'll kill you. They'll rape him. Then they'll kill him. Yeah, there's a kind of there's a perspective he has that is just impossible to escape when it comes to his decision making and kind of logic, right?
I needed to reread how he described his hand. It's a sort of fleshy spatula, which is disgusting.
Damn.
But also hilarious. A fleshy spatula.
Throwing shade out here. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I read that, I was definitely picturing him flipping burgers.
Love that. Yeah, it's a very odd encounter. Because he's so desperate. And they kind of have this revelation. And then to Pat's note earlier about like the almost like the Lovecraft stuff. After this happens, he can't see, like, so it's so dark that they can't see anything. And they're a little bit they're not quite inland yet, but they're sort of like just off the beach. And there's this absolute another paragraph where I just written next to it, like, what does this even mean? He's this is I've got this on 158 of the EPUB. He got up and walked out to the road, the black shape of it running from dark to dark, then a distant low rumble, not thunder. You could feel it under your feet, a sound without cognate and so without description, something imponderable shifting out there in the dark, the earth itself contracting with the cold. It did not come again. What time of year? What age the child? He walked out into the road and stood. The silence. The salad drying from the earth. The mud-stained shapes of flooded cities burned to the waterline. At a crossroads, a ground set with dolmen stones where the spoken bones of oracles lay mouldering. No sound but the wind. What will you say? A living man spoke these lines. He sharpened a quill with his small penknife to scribe these things in slow or lampback. At some reckonable and entabled moment, he is coming to steal my eyes, to seal my mouth with dirt. He is coming to steal my eyes, to seal my mouth with dirt. So he's almost feeling death approach, right? He kind of feels it as like a physical thing out there in the world.
What is that?
Say again, Pat?
What page is that in the actual book?
Mm.
This book.
I'll write that down, but I don't write that down.
It's 260. It's 261 for me. I don't know how that helps you.
We don't have that many pages. It has to be around 250 or something like that.
That's all right.
Possible. Anyway, what I like about that is, yeah, this sense of like he kind of starts to feel death coming as like a physical thing, or he's like sensing some great kind of like evil out there in the water or something. I love the ambiguity of that. And yeah, the particular line that stuck with me, is at a crossroads, a ground set with dolmen stones, where the spoken bones of oracles lay mouldering. The particular sentence, the particular combination of the spoken bones of oracles lay mouldering. The spoken bones is such a genius level bit of prose. It does so much for me in conveying this tone, and this kind of eerie like disreality. Ugh, I love it. I love this goddamn book, boys. I gotta tell you. So good. Blow by blow, this just fucking rules. This whole paragraph, I love it. So good.
Because up there was the sentence, "What age the child?" That was something that I was thinking about on my second read through. He's 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
Does it ever say?
We don't know, but that's kind of our guess, I think, based on his tendencies, right?
And he was pretty much like the herald of the end of the world because he was born like 3 days later or something like that. So it's like at first I was like, this all happened too quick because all of this destruction that we've seen, like the entirety of humanity gone in less than a decade. Does that make sense? Like I got stuck there for a good minute. I was like all of these like cans of food that are already rotten and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, first that went through like all these heat waves where like fire burned the planet and then the planet started freezing So you've got all of that heat, and then followed by the cold, and so the expansion and contraction. So that would destroy a whole lot of the food that way, and um, so eventually I was able to like reason my way to everything actually making sense. When at first I was like, it should have taken longer. It should have been, decades after the initial, nukes or whatever. Um, so
What that makes me think of is just that every other apocalypse fiction is just way too generous with their estimations about food and stuff like that. That's what I think.
I guess there's levels. Uh, like maybe in this world it was every nation setting off all of their stuff at once. Like the Terminator thing where they all launch, and maybe in some other stories it's just like one or two nations. Anyway,
But you know what would make sense really is if not many people died. It's just that all the infrastructure was collapsed, and then you'd go through all the food pretty quickly if there was still a lot of people, and then all at once, when all the food's gone, then you'd have huge amounts of people dying all at once. So maybe that's something that happened.
mm-hmm.
But they do pass a
feel
lot
like
of charred corpses and stuff like that. Sort of implies like that, like a nuke just like directly hit these places. Yeah. Or maybe
The heat that you're talking about, I don't know. What a question.
Yeah, the ones that they pass on the road, if I understood it correctly, it was a massive forest fire, and they couldn't leave the road because it was the only safe spot, but the road was also melting. So they melted into the tar of the road, and then they just dried out with the heat over, all of those years. But I
Seems
feel like
bad.
we don't get the full scope either of how many people were killed by the roving blood gangs or whatever they are referred to. Is at one point the man said something like he thought that this was the most. I don't remember how he phrased it. It was like the biggest amount of unfair judgment ever that humanity had ever suffered. You know that line I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a kind of there's a rapturous quality to this world as well. If we think about the religion stuff again, that like kind of everyone is gone except for the worst fucking people, and then this man and this boy. And it, to Pat's point at the start, like that kind of gives it that feeling of like unreality or like disreality. Like it's deliberately disjointed and doesn't really like. There's no way to track it logically because the scale of the horror makes it untrackable. I have to tell you, this is making me slightly insane because I keep looking at your camera and feeling like an insane person. It's for the audience in our call. JM is upside down, and it's making me feel crazy. I went to look at you then, and I was like, okay, the.
I sent a picture of what my camera is doing right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm just that extra, so that will be included.
Yeah, you'll see that, and you'll be like, God damn. So yeah, I mean, the kind of the last thing I really have is they go through these like kind of Twin Peaksy towns, and yeah, they get ambushed. It takes a really long time, but basically the guy shoots an arrow through the man's leg. And he manages to nail the guy with a flare gun, which is impressive. My man like hit V to go into VATS mode and had 95% to hit type vibe. He sets this guy on fire. There's a woman in there who he doesn't end up killing. He just like kind of leaves her. And yeah, they go on the road, but like he's dying like very immediately. He does up his wounds, but there's really no question. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Any thoughts on this final encounter before we talk about the ending?
They're both very good shots. Apparently.
I guess you'd have to be if you survive this long, right?
Yeah, true. But also, I don't know.
I have a really
Find it quite interesting how like the two people were clearly like a couple, and so they're probably in like a similar like sort of like position as the man and the kid. They were like not necessarily terrible people, but still they chose to attack them. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of like implied story there, which I like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I said last time, this is like final stage DayZ server vibes, where if something moves, you shoot it.
I have a very unhinged conspiracy theory kind of comment about this whole shooting scene.
Okay. Oh, I know what you're gonna say. Can I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Are you gonna suggest that this is on purpose by the man and woman that picked the boy up at the end in order to get the boy alone?
Oh. No, I had
Oh.
not at all considered that.
What were you gonna say?
So this is me giving McCarthy credit for doing everything here intentionally, right? So we are assuming that the flare hit the guy and burned him to death, right? Every other time throughout the book, McCarthy has been very intentional with his sensory descriptions. But in here, when the man gets up to that room, there was a faint smell of burnt wood in the room. That is not what you would be smelling if there was a burning body in the room.
Mm-hmm.
The woman could not be holding the body if there was a burning body in the room. All that we know is that she's holding the body and she has covered the body with her coat. So I keep thinking that the guy with the bow and arrow, he quote unquote like failed, and then whoever was with them stabbed him or something, took the stuff, and left. And later, a couple pages, the boy says, "Did you kill him?" And the man says, "No." Now, he could be lying to try to protect the kid, but a lot of the time he just outright tells him the truth. So when we combine the fact that there's no evidence of the body being burnt and the guy saying, "I didn't kill him," I think that one of his partners did. And then if that's true, what does all of that mean for this scene?
Well, what an unfortunate day that guy had then.
I mean, I think that like that's partially supported, right? They can't find the bow's not there. I just kind of assumed that the guy left or he's hiding or something. I didn't assume that he was killed by someone else because we don't see the body. You know what I mean?
No, she's holding the body.
Yeah, but it's covered up, isn't it? Like,
A woman was sitting in the corner holding the man. She'd taken off her coat to cover him.
I mean, he could just be
Yeah,
pretending.
you can't cover a whole body with a coat.
True.
But also, don't you hear him scream?
Yeah, it does
I mean,
super seem
yeah.
like he hits him.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe she put him out of his misery or something. I don't know. I don't think it's material to what the scene is doing, right? Which is like, it's a chance encounter that ends up getting him killed. It's not this big, momentous or like pregnant with meaning thing. Like, it's just a random encounter, which feels very of a piece with this book, right? It's these big, unwieldy, allegorical ideas that like run up into the mundane kind of material reality of this apocalypse.
I think it just feels alien to the rest of the prose, I guess is the biggest thing. Like, I would expect that it says that the man like pauses at the bottom of the steps and listens. I would have expected him to hear a crackling fire and the woman weeping. He gets to the top of the stairs. He sees the body consumed by flames. The flames are starting to spread across the dry wood. The woman is there trying to hold the body and getting burnt herself. Like, that's what the rest of the book is, but not in this scene. So it just keeps striking me as really, really different from everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's intentional.
Yeah, I think so. It calls attention to itself, certainly, in its kind of fuck, what's the word? It's quite Spartan, right? Like it's fairly thin in its deployment. And I think that's because he just got shot and suddenly, like, his subjectivity is now just pure adrenaline and like he's just acting without thinking. And part of where the description of the book comes from is his constant inability to stop thinking and these constant intrusive thoughts. And this is like every part of him is focused into like a singular activity, which is like, get the bow, stop the guy from shooting again in case he shoots my kid. Like everything is just focused into like a single laser beam of attention. And so none of that other intrusive thought stuff is possible, which is how we get the rest of the description and subjectivity of the novel. So certainly I find it to be very deliberate.
I also noted that intentionally McCarthy pointed out that the woman had gray hair. And like gray is just the color of death in this world, I guess.
It seems to be the only color, to be fair. Which when we watched the film for the Patreon, fucking hell, someone played like a Call of Duty game and went, what if that was the color grade for our film? Very wild. Yeah, that is. I didn't pick up on that. That is interesting. Also implying that they're old, maybe, which
That's what I was. Yeah.
yeah, we haven't
That's
seen.
what I was about to say.
Yeah, it's interesting because mostly what we've seen is like of the few people we've seen, it's like men in their physical prime doing violence and being violent and stuff like that. Which I think might reveal some of McCarthy's politics about gender in a way that is a little unflattering, particularly given what we know about his history with women. But yeah, it is notable that she has gray hair. I think that's like a confounding detail that I'm not quite sure what to do with.
What's his history with women? Did you say this already?
Yeah, when he was 42, he groomed and raped a 16-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, once again, linked to the very good coverage of that by Siobhan Bria Aguilera in the show notes. If you want to learn more about that.
What's with great American novelists and grooming underage girls?
It seems like it might just be America, actually. Doesn't seem to be limited to any particular. It's just a country run by pedophiles. It's a very weird encounter. I think that there's probably I wrote a joke about it in the summary, but like the entirety of like the mechanism of The Last of Us is right here, in like literal like 4K resolution, in a way that makes me go, oh yeah, like this book isn't just influential in the way that we think of like this book is influential in the same way that like Lord of the Rings is influential, right? They don't just influence people; they produce their own cultural like subgenres and cultural kind of modes of aesthetic categorization, in a way that's like hard to not immediately see when you get like sections like this, where it's like that you're walking through an empty town, then it's like bang, bow and arrow, bang, you shoot back, you run up the stairs. It's very much got that DNA right here. As to an extent, does After London, I guess, you can't talk about post-apocalypse and think about The Last of Us and Fallout without After London. But this, to me, the mimesis of the scene and the kineticism of it, very much is here.
There's another interesting line on, for me, it's page 268, which I kind of wonder if it's McCarthy just like directly kind of talking into the audience. But the man and the boy are talking, and the man's trying to get the kid to tell him some stories. And well, why don't you tell me dreams? but stories are supposed to be happy. They don't have to be. And then this whole little short discussion about whether stories should be told if they're not happy stories.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I was literally talking about the book, and they're having the same conversation in the book.
Yeah, that's McCarthy doing a bit of like, did you understand the book yet? is kind of how I read that little exchange. Yeah, and I think the other thing that puts into my mind is the way that the man thinks. So when in our first reading, we talked about that like perfect day that he has on the lake, and James, you kind of quite rightly pointed out like, yeah, but it's kind of depressing. Like it's actually not that good of a memory, but it's the best he's got, or it's a memory that's been impaired by how bad the world is, and it's like lost all of its color and definition and things like that. And I think this is a reflection of that, or it's a resumption of that in some way, where part of the problem with him constantly telling this thing about like, oh, we got to keep the flame, like this kid's a god. Part of the problem with that is that he is sort of there's a relationship to reality the boy has that is perhaps insufficient if he's not there to do the bad things. Like to what Pat was saying before, like if he's not there to fucking kill that guy and decide that guy should die, the kid's not going to survive. And so I also wonder if this is him. If at the start I said this section is kind of like death rites and him kind of preparing to die. I also wonder if this is him trying to get in some final lessons for the boy about like the way that the world is going to work when he's not in it, type of thing. Because maybe he's never said this before. It seems. He only tells good stories, perhaps, until this moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing like as the last thing he tells the boy to to basically have him as a voice in his head, and to like, and he's saying like, oh, like that's actually a thing you need to practice. Have me as your conscience, because he's fairly confident that like he's taught the boy all the right things and stuff, and like yeah.
It's also interesting to think back that I don't remember at what point they were being chased down by people, and the man gives the boy the gun and again coaches him through something that they had obviously talked through many times before, and he's like, you remember how to put it in your mouth, right? You remember how to point it directly upward, right? You remember how to pull the trigger, right? And it's like, now that the dad is at the end, now that the dad is gone and the kid has one bullet left in the gun, that's his only option. If he sees anyone, like he can stop one person and then he's toast.
Mm.
They still have 2 bullets, don't
they? No, they only.
No. Wait, hang on.
They only had 2. They only had 2 when they shot the one cannibal dude and then ran away.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so down to 1. Yeah.
They had 3 in the flashback, and then the wife says, we should have done it when we had 3 bullets, now we only have 2.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And then he has a flashback earlier where he's like, when there were still 3 bullets in the gun. Shush. Anyway, dark stuff. But yes, I think that's probably right. And like just to underscore how much this is him preparing the kid for death. He starts to kind of lose his grip on reality a little bit, just like in general, and not in like a he's going crazy or anything like that, but more just like a there's a kind of evacuation of logistical truth toward the end of this book, where it becomes really unclear to both you, the reader, and the man, like what all is happening. There's a particular passage I think underscores this. The days slog past uncounted and uncalendared along the interstate in the distant long lines of charred and rusting cars. The raw rims of the wheels sitting in a stiff grey sludge of melted rubber, in blackened rings of wire. The incinerate corpses shrunk to the size of a child and propped on the bare springs of the seats. 10,000 dreams encell-puckered within their crozzled hearts. They went on, treading the dead world under like rats on a wheel. The nights dead still and deader black. So cold. They talked hardly at all. He coughed all the time, and the boy watched him spitting blood, slumping along. Filthy, ragged, hopeless. He'd stop and lean on the cart, and the boy would go on, and then stop and look back, and he would raise his weeping eyes and see him standing there in the road, looking back at him from some unimaginable future, glowing in that waste like a tabernacle. The road crossed a dry slough where pipes of ice stood out on the frozen mud like formations in a cave. The remains of an old fire by the side of the road. Beyond that, a long concrete causeway. A dead swamp. Dead trees standing out the grey water trailing grey and relic hang moss. The silky spills of ash against the curbing. He stood leaning on the gritty concrete rail. Perhaps in the world's destruction, it would be possible at last to see how it was made. Oceans, mountains, the ponderous counterspectacle of things ceasing to be. The sweeping waste, hydroptic and coldly secular. The silence.
I feel like that paragraph describes like the value of these kind of stories. Like, like giving you a perspective that you would never see otherwise. And leads you to think about, how it was made, the oceans, the mountains. Like I don't know, it just gives you a perspective on like how different reality could be. And yeah, I think that's what he's sort of pondering about here.
Mm-hmm.
Just before that, there's an interesting line. Several times they talk about dreams, and the man mentions that you should be having bad dreams in bad times or something. Like basically, like when you start having good dreams, it means you're about to die. And on the bottom of 273, in the night sometimes now, he'd wake in the black and freezing waste out of softly colored worlds of human love, the songs of birds, the sun. So he is starting to have the good dreams before he's coughing up blood, and then it says he's having good dreams, and then in a few more pages, then it's definitely obvious that he's dying. So it was just interesting to note that like the dreams, the coughing and the blood was first, but the dreams were heralding his death.
Right. Well, they always have been, right? When they're starving, he doesn't trust the good dreams that are like they kind of interweave memory and these good kind of imagined pasts and things like that. And then it's like almost like a siren call to death to give into these dreams, right? Because it's like a world that no longer exists kind of thing. Whereas for the boy who doesn't have those memories, he might be freed from the good dreams heralding death, right? They might be kind of unbidden by this threat for the boy because he isn't... Like, his good dreams are like the night they spent in the bunker or like the night they spent by the waterfall type of thing. They're not a world that no longer exists. So there's less danger in them, maybe?
Yeah, which is... I mean, that's really an interesting play into the Plato's cave theory of... like the kid has only been told these false silhouette stories his whole life, and he's never really like been outside the cave to see what the world was really like. And his dad keeps describing all of the stuff that was out there in the world. Also, I keep forgetting about this, but calling him Papa, is there meaning there? Because that's a really unusual term in America.
No, McCarthy's just old. he's just old. Yeah, he's an old guy. No, I don't think so. I have read some interesting reads of like they might be Hispanic or something. I don't think there's any. I mean, you can do that. I don't find it particularly productive. But no, I don't think so.
Yeah, because I had that same thought, and I was like, it doesn't change anything in the story for them to suddenly have been Hispanic. But the choice was obviously, there was some meaning there, since it's such an archaic term. Maybe archaic is not the right word, but it's.
It is interesting, because the only way, and again, these aren't real people, so this isn't true. But if you want to do the logical thought, the only way that he would know to call the man Papa is if the man told him to call him. You know what I mean? Like, he would have to get that language from the man. So that's noteworthy. I'm not sure what that means. And we don't know when this book is set either. So that's the other thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And also, we talked in the first instance about, just to square the circle in this thought, on like Derrida and tautology and things like that, and like, the ending of things necessarily including the beginning of things, and vice versa. And I think this is part of that, right? McCarthy deliberately using that uncommon turn of phrase maybe is putting some pressure on, like, yeah, the world's ending and this man is just reaching for whatever's in front of him. I also just have to be fucking honest with you. If he said old dad, it wouldn't have the same impact and it wouldn't make him feel as much of an innocent, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. When I anthropomorphize my cats and give them a voice, they call me Papa. So therefore, I was more invested in.
It's true. I have them call me sir or father and nothing else.
Oh yeah, he calls me father sometimes too.
Yeah, that's cool.
When he wants something.
Yeah, when he's really trying to suck up.
Yeah.
Father, may I please have a treat? I've been very well behaved.
Yes. Little bastard.
You can also call me Master of the House if you want.
Master of the house, keeper of the inn.
Your Honor, sir. Big man with a big plan.
Your wizardness.
Your thoughtfulness.
With that kind of like time question, or what era this is set in, you got me thinking back to the train that they found, because I kept thinking that the description of the locomotive didn't sound right to me, because it kept bringing back images of really old-fashioned trains and not what a modern locomotive would probably be like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the most modern object that they encounter in this book?
What's the
So
most
like
modern?
the portable gas stove or whatever, or
What's the most modern object they encounter in this?
Well, even then, those camp stoves have been around for decades, and I don't know that they've really ever changed much.
Is it cars?
cars.
Like, there's like a lot of cars, right? You know what I mean?
You only ever see the
Yeah, that's
burned
true.
wreckage.
Yeah. Yeah, but like old-timey cars, you're not gonna have like fuckloads, you know? Like, it'd be like a couple. Not like an entire,
Oh, you know what else hit me?
Yeah, go. Sorry, Jay.
The boat. It was described as like a dual mast boat, and I don't know how many actually use, like, this was like a work ship. It wasn't a pleasure ship. So that really paints old world for them to be sailing under sail power.
Makes you think. I genuinely would say that I think part of what McCarthy is doing is making this deliberately ambiguous so that he doesn't have to deal with, like, the modern technology of the time this was written. You know what I mean? He's not sitting there having to worry about, like, what about people's Nokia phones? Like, there's a convenience it affords him to not have to have to contend with this. But I know what the most modern thing is. I've done it.
What?
It is the digital alarm clock the night the world ends.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because it freezes on that particular. Haha.
Yeah.
Eat shit, you guys. I win the memory contest. I'll send you my PayPal details. I do accept prize money. Yeah. So like that to me implies it's like the edge of modernity, right? Like probably set when the book was written.
I was about to ask when were digital clocks around from? I truly don't know. Because I feel like that could like be very easily one of like the very the early digital things that came out.
Hold on.
In like the 80s or something.
Digital clock. Wait, I'm consulting the Tabernacle. 1969. Technically.
Wow.
Oh,
Whoa.
this also
1883? What the fuck?
Okay.
Whoa.
man.
But as we know them, the 6970, as part of, shockingly, most all good modern inventions related to the space race.
This is also not helpful for nailing down anything, but he at one point finds a light sensor from like a camera, and he was going to try to use it to track to figure out what day it was and what month and all that kind of stuff, but he needed to find batteries for it. But that kind of photography equipment has already been around for decades, so
yeah,
that doesn't really help.
It's true. Well,
but the lack of high technology is extremely suspicious. Like it could be him just, like you had said, not wanting to label the world in any certain era. Or it could also be part of like the theme of like technology caused the nukes, like technology caused the downfall of the world, and at the end of the world there is no more of the thing that broke it. Because like even most of the bad guys don't have guns. They're using like homemade spears and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this all comes back to that piece we were talking about of like, seeing the way that the world has ended gives you a really good and clear vision of like how it was, might give you a glimpse into how it was made. I think that's all of a piece with itself, right? The world has moved on in some sense, and so with it goes technology. Imagines McCarthy. I definitely feel like this is of a piece with like After London, where it's like, yeah, all of the machines eventually spin down. This is kind of like the Dark Tower as well, to an extent. That like in the first instance, all the technology keeps going for a while, and then eventually, because it's moving components, it rusts, or the friction causes it to break, and all the circuits eventually stop one by one. And like that's the way that the world ends, is not with like this great eruption of violence, but with this just like slow unwinding of things. And that in some sense, that modern reality is built on like this level of fragility that is only possible to glimpse as it all starts to go away. And yeah, I think that like McCarthy is doing something very deliberate with the exclusion of certain technology. We know that the gun he's using is a revolver, right? Because he's stuffing in the shells to make it look full, which means it's not a magazine, it's a barrel, right? It's very deliberate choices being made.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention too, because I had talked, I don't know which episode, about how like the guns, modern guns, need like this proper care and oiling because they have so many moving components and stuff, but revolvers don't. Like he may have survived for so long because he had one of the types of guns that was able to survive for so long and defend them for so long without the stuff that you need to care for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also McCarthy's a Western writer. Like that's the other thing. Like he writes Western novels, so the 6-shooter is definitely his territory. Even like No Country for Old Men, like there's technology, but it's not it's not technology with a capital T, right? It's like there might be a TV, like an ancient TV in like a gas station and a phone line, but phone lines have been around since the Wild West. Like there's a way that he kind of he flattens reality in his books to resemble the West at all times, because that's just the kind of writer he is. So I think it's also part of this.
There's a couple more neat lines on that very next page, which is 275 for me. But they're coming up on this wreckage where like a hurricane or something has come through, and the guy's just now like officially dying and has to keep stopping and resting, and they find like a couch, and he's just like sitting on a couch in the middle of this devastation. And they've had to get rid of the cart, and the boy's carrying a suitcase, and he looks over and standing with a suitcase like an orphan waiting for a bus. Like a lot of this imagery just hit so hard.
Mm.
And then at the bottom of that page, either the guy is just going crazy or whatever, but the man is talking, and then the man says, "What are we going to do, Papa?" "Well, what are we?" said the boy.
Mm-hmm.
So the man's talking to himself, and he calls himself Papa, or his reality is breaking and the kid was never real, just like I said from the beginning, and he's talking to himself as the kid.
Or maybe he's talking to his dad, and he calls his dad Papa, which is why the boy calls him Papa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you? I just think that the he is still referring to the boy.
Yeah, that's also what I was thinking.
That's really what it's
Probably just the boy saying it twice. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the structure of that paragraph, you don't
But-
know who the initial he attribution refers to in the sentence before that. He looked across the water to the country beyond. You don't know which he that means. But also, it doesn't matter.
And the perspective does shift to the kid very, very soon afterwards as well. So
Yeah. Right, and I also think that's part of it, right? It's like it no longer matters whose perspective it is, because the outcome is the same at this point. Like the man's gonna die and the boy's gonna have to go on. You know. But yes, it starts to get really dire here. And yeah, and you know, they keep going, they're barely making any progress. The next day he headed inland. A vast low swale where ferns and hydrangeas and wild orchids lived on in ashen effigies, which the wind had not yet reached. Their progress was a torture. In 2 days, when they came out upon a road, he set the bag down and sat bent over with his arms crossed at his chest and coughed until he could cough no more. 2 more days, and they may have traveled 10 miles. They crossed the river, and a short ways on, they came to a crossroads. Down country, a storm had passed over the isthmus and leveled the dead black trees from east to west, like weeds in the floor of a stream. Here they camped, and when he lay down, he knew that he could go no further, and that this was the place where he would die. The boy sat watching him, his eyes welling. "Oh, Papa," he said. He watched him through the grass, and kneel with the cup of water he'd fetched. There was light all about him. He took the cup and drank and lay back. They had for food a single tin of peaches, but he made the boy eat it, and he would not take any. "I can't," he said. "It's all right. I'll save you half. Okay, you have it tomorrow." He took the cup and moved away, and when he moved, the light moved with him. He'd wanted to try and make a tent out of the tarp, but the man would not let him. He said that he didn't want anything covering him. He lay watching the boy at the fire. He wanted to be able to see. "Look around you," he said. "There is no prophet in the earth's long chronicle who's not honored here today. Whatever form you spoke of, you were right." The boy thought he smelled wet ash on the wind. He went up the road and came back dragging a piece of plywood from the roadside trash, and he drove sticks into the ground with a rock and made of the plywood a rickety lean-to. But in the end, it didn't rain. He left the flare pistol and took the revolver with him, and he scoured the countryside for anything to eat, but he came back empty-handed. The man took his hand, wheezing. "You need to go on," he said. "I can't go on with you." "You need to keep going. You don't know what might be down the road. We were always lucky. You'll be lucky again. You'll see. Just go. It's all right. I can't. It's all right. This has been a long time coming. Now it's here. Keep going south. Do everything the way we did it. You're going to be okay, Papa. You have to. No, I'm not. Keep the gun with you at all times. You need to find the good guys, but you can't take any chances. No chances, do you hear? I want to be with you. You can't. Please, you can't. You have to carry the fire. I don't know how to. Yes, you do. Is it real, the fire? Yes, it is. Where is it? I don't know where it is. So that's the boy. Where is it? I don't know where it is. Yes, you do. It's inside you. It was always there. I can see it. Just take me with you, please. I can't. Please, Papa, I can't. I can't hold my son dead in my arms. I thought I could, but I can't. You said you would never leave me. I know, I'm sorry. You have my whole heart. You always did. You're the best guy. You always were. If I'm not here, you can still talk to me. You can talk to me and I'll talk to you. You'll see. Will I hear you? Yes, you will. You have to make it you have to make it like talk that you imagine, and you'll hear me. You have to practice. Just don't give up, okay? Okay. Okay, I'm really scared, Papa. I know, but you'll be okay. You're going to be lucky, I know you are. I've got to stop talking. I'm going to start coughing again. It's okay, Papa. You don't have to talk. It's okay. Yes. Pretty devastating. Yeah. I got a little bit emotional reading it there, but like, fuck me. Like, when I read this the first time, I was fucking bawling my eyes out.
Yeah. Sorry, one quick second. I gotta switch my headphones.
Yeah, I find that that last conversation I really struggled to get through the first time I was reading it. When it's the point where he says you're the best guy, that just like yeah, it's pretty rough. Yeah, and then I think so then the boy sits there for a while, and he actually doesn't die right here, does he? So there's a point where I want to try and identify the break in subjectivity, and I think it's so that on the next page, the man wakes in the darkness, and the boy's sitting there, and then there's like, you know, he's like, the dream starts to impact the waking world, and we get the scene from the start of the book laid over the top of this. Drip of water, a fading light. Old dreams encroached upon the waking world. The dripping was in the cave. The light was a candle which the boy bore in a ring stick of beaten copper. The wax splattered on the stones. Tracks of unknown creatures and the mortified Lois. In that cold corridor, they had reached the point of no return, which was measured from the first solely by the light they carried with them. And then they have this final conversation, where he asks if the boy remembers the other little boy, and yeah, he's like, who will find the boy? And he says, goodness will find the little boy. It always has. It will again. And that's the point where the subjectivity breaks. And it's, he slept close to his father that night and held him, but when he woke in the morning, his father was cold and stiff. And so it's that moment where we then occupy the boy's subjectivity. But I just wanted to call out the kind of cave imagery being resumed here from the first page of this book. In the last instance when he dies, that dream, which we described as like an omen or a portend, is here in a big way.
I thought it was also interesting that the man didn't want a shelter built because ostensibly he wanted to see the stars when he died, which he couldn't. But then there's also like old religions that are like, you have to be unencumbered so your soul can go up to heaven. So I don't know if there was something maybe involving that idea.
That was
But
kind of
then
my assumption, yeah.
Later, but related, the like in a couple pages, when the kid's with the other man and they're getting ready to leave, and he's like, I want to cover up my papa. I don't want anyone to see him. And I don't know. It's like the opposite, where the man was like, "Don't cover me up," but then the kid is like, "I don't want anyone else to lay eyes on." I don't know. It's like there's something with that imagery going on, but I'm not really sure what.
Well, and certainly, right. This question of blindness and sight is like throughout this whole book, right? You get that through that initial paragraph with like the blind creature by the lake. That's definitely a zombie, and not a moose or whatever the fuck. You get it with Eli, like the blind old man. Yeah, like we've talked a lot about that. Like the ability to see, the ability to understand, and like comprehension versus sight as well is like a big. If we talk about Plato's cave, right, that's like a big part of that is like you can see, but do you understand type of thing. I don't know. I think that's all here. My kind of take of that is the man is saying, hey, you know, I want to be able to see the boy when I die. He's not really thinking about religious imagery. He just wants to see his son in the last instance, which he has said before is a god or represents God or goodness or something like that. And literally represents the light in the final instance. So I think he's kind of saying, yeah, like the man is saying, like, I want to see my son, who's everything to me. And once that's done, the boy is then like, yeah, I want to, like, no one else should see him because the last person he saw was me, type of thing. That makes sense. That's kind of how I understand that. It's like preserving that final moment of intimacy.
I keep coming back to the idea of seeing him reveals truth, and the kid wants that truth kept for himself or something. I don't know. I have to keep pondering.
Yeah, it's somewhere in there. Yeah, not sure what to make of it.
And what else is notable is like the very next paragraph there. He sat there a long time weeping, and then he got up and walked out through the woods to the road. When he came back, he knelt beside his father, blah, blah, blah. And that's the point where I'm like, everything else that happens throughout the rest of this might be a like depiction of dying and going to heaven. Because if we're looking at the road as like the lie that they've been living, and now his dad is dead and the kid's reaction is to walk out to the road, what is he doing there? You know, so I could kind of see a reading where he walks out to the road and pulls out the gun and like kills himself, and it's like his spirit that walks back to his dad. And then directly following that, you have him staying there 3 days before he meets this next man. You've got 3 days with the imagery of Jesus and the resurrection. The man that comes up and finds them, it talks about how he's wearing a bandolier of shotgun shells. And I keep imagining that you'll frequently see Jesus depicted with this like kind of purple sash, which looks kind of like it would drape like a bandolier across your chest. And then he wraps up the father because that's what the kid asked for, and then he takes him to meet the woman who says that they have kids, and I keep thinking it's like it might be an Adam and Eve kind of analogy, or like a Jesus and then Mother Mary. So like this is the point where I think like the whole ending could be totally like allegorical, and the kid is dead at this point.
Yeah, another reading I've seen that's like that is that the man and the woman that he meets are his mother and father. He just doesn't know it. Because He literally says he tried to talk to God, but the best thing was to talk to his father. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just saying that that's a reading I've seen. Is that yeah he dies or he transcends in some way, and then he goes and this is his parents.
I mean, he also has one eye, like Odin. His eyes.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I don't know. I being the type of guy I am, the cold secular person I am, I read this as like what's happening is what's really happening. And it's miraculous and insane that it happens the way it does. But it's cashing out on the thing the man has been saying the whole time, which is like if you're the good guys and you do the right thing, you carry the fire, and eventually things work out. And this is things working out.
The reason that I keep getting drawn towards that other, I'm with you. Like I don't see enough here to really push like the religious interpretation, except for the fact that the entire book is saying that life is dead, Earth is inhospitable. So how is this man and his wife and their two kids? How are they surviving? How are they building their own? He's making his own shotgun shells. And where did they come from? Because it also talks about that that the papa and the boy came to a crossroads, and then they camped, and this man came from where they came from the other direction. Like they already passed him, and he saw them, and so he's following them to come and get them. And so then there's also imagery there. I don't know. So I guess I'm saying that like the religious thing makes more sense because even with this guy finding him, they're still gonna die. It's not like he's taking him to some safe place because we've seen no evidence that
we
exists.
don't know that for sure. And that's sort of the point of this ending, right? Like we don't know for sure. And like part of the problem with the man is that he was always so sure that everything was fucked. There's a kind of there's a sort of Lives of the Saints prophetic thing happening there, where because he was incapable of thinking that things could be good again, things couldn't be good again. But the boy is capable of thinking things can be good because his father taught him that it's possible things could be good again. You know? I don't know. I don't disagree with you at all. I just find the ambiguity of it very productive. And kind of every time you read this book, I think you can have a different take on this ending.
Could these be that group of people that they saw when they were in the bunker or something? And there was at least there's like 3 men and 1 woman or something. Do you remember that?
There was a lot of people, yeah. Because they hid from them, right?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they were the ones that which we skipped over, the scene of the eating the baby. But it was right.
Okay.
It was right after we saw those people that the next thing was the baby scene.
Yeah,
so I was
maybe.
inferring that they were connected. So these are probably not those people.
You know what? I had blocked that baby scene out of my
Same.
mind. That was
Yeah, I don't want to think about that. This book's already dark enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look, we're running up on time here. Do you guys have anything that you want to say about this ending before we wrap up? It hasn't been said.
I don't know. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. It's an appropriate ending.
I think so. Yeah, appropriate's the word I would use. Yeah. It's like not the ending I wanted, but it feels very appropriate.
Hmm.
Can I tell you something really funny? That in the novel that Bird Box, the adaptation is based on, it has the same ending, but it ends definitively being like, and there's a commune where people live happily and safely, and it sucks because it drains.
Kind of lame.
It drains all the punch out of the questions of the ending, and you just kind of go, okay, so cool, man. Yeah, we'll probably watch that film for the Patreon at some point during this unit, because I think it does a lot of similar things, but struggles to maintain the balancing act that the road does, where the possibility of things getting good is always present in the road, but never realized. That film has the film adaptation, at least the book is a little bit better, has a much more difficult time finding that balancing point, as does, I think, A Quiet Place and films like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Any final thoughts on The Road?
Yeah, I was like, how do you wrap up how do you wrap up a discussion about this book?
Oh, I'm just gonna read the last paragraph. Is what I'm gonna do.
I was like, you need to say something like incredibly poignant that makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay. Not engaging with you on that point. You should read this book. If you've been listening along, you've been wondering, you should read this book. Just the blow for blow, it's worth it. Just the prose. Once there were brook trout in the streams and the mountains. You could see them standing in the amber current where the white edges of their fins wimpled softly in the flow. They smelled of moss in your hand, polished and muscular and terrestrial. On their backs were vermiculate patterns that were maps of the world in its becoming, maps and mazes, of a thing which could not be put back, not be made right again. In the deep glens where they lived, all things were older than man, and they hummed of mystery. All the modern novel can do is done here, apparently, according to The Guardian. Yeah, great book. It's good stuff. Very good discussion. Yeah. What are we talking about next time? We're talking about the 2010 film Book of Eli, which is a resumption of this story that takes the religious stuff and says, what if we crank that dial to 13? And has no idea what to do with that decision. It's a really fascinating picture. And some really great action as well. And some questionable casting. So we'll, yeah. Have you guys seen that film before, by the way? Or is this like a first time?
Nope, I have always wanted to, so I'm quite excited.
Okay.
I have seen that film. And yeah, what you said about action, I was going to say, it's like The Road, but with like, as if it was an action film.
Yeah, it really is. Yes, look forward to that. We haven't really talked about anything with action in it on this show outside of Daredevil, so I'm interested to see how we land there.
Speaking of,
if you'd like to support us, Daredevil coming out. Yeah, we'll have to do some Patreon for that at some point. I don't know. I saw that latest trailer. I'm like, I don't know if this looks good or not.
I thought it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool. I don't know if it looks good. Anyway, I don't know, man. If you would like to support us, you can head to patreon.com/zeroindent. Supporting us at the $5 tier unlocks the bonus episodes of this show where we watch and talk about supplementary materials. We will be watching the film adaptation of The Road for Patreon. So if you want to hear us talk about that, you can head to patreon.com/zeroindent. Or we have just recently launched YouTube memberships if you want to watch the video versions of our Patreon exclusive episodes. We are rolling out the back catalog of the next few months. And yeah, you can go watch us talk about The Road there if you so desire. Free Patreon subscribers gain access to the Zero Indent Patreon chat, where you can send us questions or ideas for future episodes directly, or you can always DM me on Patreon or Blue Sky. Any support you give us helps us keep making thoughtful, independent media criticism, an important practice to preserve in an age where context is defined by algorithms. We appreciate all of our Patreon subscribers who help us continue to make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. That's it. We did it. We're at the end of this road. Huh? Huh? Fellas? Am I right, fellas?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've turned off the road. We've reached our destination. All right, we're gonna get out of here. It's not just the end of the show. Wait, no, fuck. Hang on.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. It's all falling apart. It's just the end of the show. It's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world.
Well, it'd be nice to keep going, but I know you got to hit the road.
Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com.